In 2025, Homeless in America TV turns its focus toward California, a place long praised for its shimmering coastlines, thriving tech empires, and the intoxicating promise of reinvention, yet also a place carrying one of the heaviest homelessness crises in the entire nation. To outsiders, California is sunshine and opportunity, but behind that postcard image is a stark truth. Approximately 187,000 people struggle to survive without shelter, a number so immense that it accounts for nearly 1/4 of all people experiencing homelessness in the United States. This wrenching divide between glamour and suffering shapes the emotional core of every documentary about the homeless created this year. Each film serves as a reminder that those sleeping in tents, cars, RVs, abandoned lots, or beneath freeway overpasses are not faceless figures or data points. They are human beings with stories, memories, fears, and hopes. Their lives deserve to be seen with the same gravity, empathy, and dignity granted to anyone else who calls this state home. California. The opening portrait. California has long been marketed as the land where dreams take shape, the place where actors arrive with nothing but ambition, where entrepreneurs transform ideas into billion-dollar companies, and where the coastline seems to promise a life overflowing with possibility. Yet in 2025, when looking past the beaches, palm trees, and glamorous skylines, another California becomes visible, one shaped not by prosperity, but by the growing, urgent, and deeply painful reality of homelessness. Traveling through the state is like moving through two separate worlds, stitched together by geography but divided by circumstance. In wealthy enclaves such as Santa Monica, Malibu, Palo Alto, or Newport Beach, the air feels light and the streets radiate comfort. Quiet neighborhoods with million-dollar homes, electric cars charging in driveways, and families strolling through streets lined with boutiques. But only a few miles away, you encounter a completely different existence. Rows of aging RVs line industrial blocks, tents cluster beneath freeway bridges, people push shopping carts filled with blankets, bottles, and fragments of their remaining belongings. And the sidewalks of many downtown districts reveal the quiet suffering of those who have nowhere else to go. By 2025, California's homelessness crisis has reached a scale that shocks even longtime residents. Roughly 187,000 people across the state live without stable shelter, including individuals sleeping in cars, families renting a single motel room by the week, seniors living in makeshift encampments, and thousands of youth who drift between couches, shelters, and the streets. Many of these people once had stable lives. They held jobs, paid rent, and planned for the future. But when housing costs soared, sometimes doubling in only a few years, savings evaporated, evictions increased, and entire communities were pushed past their limits. In cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco, even individuals earning $20, $25 per hour struggle to secure a studio apartment. A single medical bill, a sudden job loss, or a rent increase can send a person spiraling into homelessness in a matter of weeks. The picture deepens further when looking at the composition of California's homeless population. A large portion are working individuals, baristas, security guards, construction workers, caregivers, people who serve the public every day yet cannot afford the very homes they help maintain. Families represent one of the fastest growing groups, especially single mothers who juggle daycare, food costs, and unstable part-time jobs. Seniors, too, are increasingly vulnerable. Many live on fixed incomes that have not kept pace with inflation, forcing them into vehicles or shelters after decades of independence. Youth homelessness continues to rise, often tied to family conflict, the foster system, or lack of safe long-term housing. Mental health challenges and addiction issues also play significant roles, though not always in the way the public assumes. Many individuals fall into homelessness first, and only after months of instability do mental health symptoms worsen or substance use develop as a coping mechanism. Others live with untreated trauma, PTSD, or chronic illness, conditions made far worse by sleeping outdoors. The fentanyl crisis adds yet another layer of danger, with overdoses affecting people across cities, large and small. And throughout these struggles, the lack of affordable housing remains the single greatest barrier preventing individuals from rebuilding their lives. This layered reality, one defined by economic pressure, family hardship, medical debt, housing scarcity, and untreated trauma is what gives California's streets their complicated emotional texture. And it is precisely this complex, often invisible truth that a documentary about the homeless aims to illuminate. Instead of framing homelessness as a distant social problem or an abstract policy challenge, such documentaries bring viewers directly into the places where real people fight to survive. They reveal how an encampment forms when 5 friends look out for one another after losing their jobs, how a grandmother cooks dinner on a small camping stove beside her RV, how a teenager attends school online using a public library's Wi-Fi, how a father sleeps sitting up to ensure his family remains safe inside a cramped sedan during the night, and how thousands of people, despite hardship, continue to hope for stability and dignity. Through this lens, the glamorous California known around the world becomes intertwined with the California that so many struggle through each day. The contradictions are no longer abstract. They become personal, human, and impossible to ignore. For every luxury condo rising above a skyline, there is someone below who wonders if they will survive the night. For every tech visionary featured on magazine covers, there is a service worker sleeping behind the very building they help maintain. And for every mile of coastline drenched in golden light, there are countless individuals waiting for a moment of safety, a moment of compassion, or simply a moment to rest. In the end, understanding California in 2025 requires acknowledging both realities at once: the dazzling version built on dreams and the painful version created by inequality. A documentary about the homeless does not ask viewers to abandon their admiration for California's achievements. It asks them to widen their view, to recognize the human beings living in the shadows of those achievements, and to consider what it would mean for a state so rich in resources to finally extend its promise of opportunity to everyone. Los Angeles, a city of dual realities. Los Angeles represents the contradictions of California with a clarity that is almost overwhelming. It is the city where perfection is manufactured daily, where sunsets glow behind palm trees, where red carpets sparkle beneath camera flashes, and where the idea of limitless possibility feels woven into the air itself. Yet, just a short walk away from polished film studios and luxury high-rises, a different version of the city emerges, one that most tourists never see, but hundreds of thousands of residents cannot escape. On sidewalks, beneath glittering billboards, tents stretch in long, weary lines. Makeshift shelters fill underpasses, and countless individuals move through each day unsure where their next meal will come from or whether they will have a safe place to sleep that night. Even though Los Angeles reports a 4% decrease in homelessness, the suffering remains vast and deeply rooted. The numbers alone cannot capture the emotional weight of the crisis, but the stories do. People like LaHanne Warren, who has spent 8 years in Skid Row, one of the most concentrated homelessness zones in the United States, surviving by collecting recyclables, searching for food, and constantly navigating danger. Or 72-year-old Marianne Sanchez, who shares a cramped mobile home with her disabled husband and adult daughter, all 3 of them living in a space so small that every movement becomes a negotiation. They represent thousands of Angelenos who once lived what many would consider normal lives, yet were pushed into homelessness by medical debt, sudden eviction, inflation, or the rising costs of caregiving. The psychological consequences are equally profound. Even after securing permanent housing, many formerly homeless individuals speak about the lingering fear that lives in their bodies: fear of being harmed in the night, fear of returning to the streets, fear of losing everything again. Some cannot sleep lying down because years spent staying alert outdoors have conditioned them to rest only in an upright position, ready to react at any moment. The safety of 4 walls takes time to trust. Trauma does not vanish simply because a person receives a key. Yet, despite the magnitude of the crisis, Los Angeles is not without efforts or compassion. Outreach teams travel the city through the late hours of the night, often at 2 or 3 in the morning, searching for people in medical, emotional, or psychological crisis. These responders are sometimes the first human contact a person has had in days. The home program delivers mental health medication directly to the streets, ensuring that individuals who cannot reach clinics still receive stabilizing support. The Inside Safe initiative dismantles encampments not as punishment, but with a commitment to relocating residents into real housing rather than pushing them from one sidewalk to another. Motels are converted into interim housing, new units are built for long-term stability, and caseworkers help individuals reconnect with families, apply for identification, or receive health services. A documentary about the homeless set in Los Angeles reveals a truth that challenges the stereotypes many viewers carry. The people living outside are not distant strangers, nor caricatures shaped by media images. They are baristas who once greeted customers with morning smiles, caregivers who tended to the elderly, security guards who worked long shifts, restaurant workers who served meals, neighbors who once waved from across the street. They are individuals who participated in the same city life that millions of Angelenos enjoy, until circumstances, often sudden, often unfair, force them into survival mode. Los Angeles, more than any other city, demands that viewers see both realities at once, the shimmering dreamscape and the humanitarian crisis standing beside it. And in that collision of beauty and hardship, a deeper question emerges about the city's identity, its priorities, and its responsibility to the people who call it home. San Francisco, a city learning to heal. San Francisco, a city celebrated for its sweeping hills, its iconic Golden Gate, and its world-shaping innovations, is also a city carrying wounds that cannot be seen from postcards or drone shots. Beneath the beauty lies a daily struggle that has shaped entire neighborhoods. In places like the Tenderloin, mornings do not begin with the aroma of coffee or the rush of commuters. They begin with the soft rustle of survival. People wake from the cold sidewalks, pack their belongings into backpacks or carts, shake off the chill of another sleepless night, and prepare to move yet again before street sweepers and police arrive. Every morning marks a small victory simply for having made it through the dark. Although San Francisco has seen a reduction in tents lining its streets, the decrease does not reflect an equally large decrease in suffering. The emotional toll remains heavy. The fear of losing belongings, the exhaustion of hypervigilance, the loneliness of navigating each day without stability. Many individuals spend years learning how to protect the little they own: an ID card, a sleeping bag, a photograph, or a clean pair of socks. These items become lifelines. Losing them can set a person back months. In recent years, the city has invested heavily in navigation centers, which represent a shift from older, overcrowded shelter models. These centers offer something rare: dignity. Residents receive safe beds without strict curfews, locked storage where their possessions won't be stolen, hot showers with real privacy, and meals served without judgment. Staff members greet residents by name, a small gesture, yet powerful for people who have spent years feeling invisible. Because of these improvements, shelter utilization consistently exceeds 90%, proving that when services are safe, respectful, and free of humiliation, people do seek help. Yet San Francisco remains overshadowed by the presence of fentanyl, a substance so potent that a single misjudgment can steal a life in seconds. Outreach workers encounter its impact every day. Individuals slumped against walls, unresponsive bodies on sidewalks, groups huddled around small pieces of foil, unaware of anything beyond the temporary escape in front of them. The crisis affects every district, from the Tenderloin to Soma to the Mission, leaving no neighborhood untouched. Even those who are not using the drug are affected by the environment shaped around it: exposure to trauma, loss, fear, or the constant witnessing of overdoses. To confront this, the city has developed 24/7 stabilization centers, a comparatively new model offering immediate medical attention, continuous monitoring, and enough time for individuals to regain clarity before being released back into the chaos. Instead of being processed and discharged within hours, as often happened in the past, people are given space to breathe, to stabilize, and to make safer decisions. These centers have become small islands of hope in a storm that has taken too many lives. Every documentary about the homeless filmed in San Francisco captures this duality: a city that is not yet healed, but one that refuses to abandon those who are suffering. Outreach workers, nurses, volunteers, and community leaders push forward with a determination that refuses to fade. They carry Narcan in their pockets, warm blankets in their vans, and an unwavering belief that every life, no matter how fragile or wounded, is worth saving. The path remains steep, but the commitment to healing, one person at a time, is unmistakable. San Diego, a city searching for light. San Diego's sunshine often masks the expanding homelessness crisis within city boundaries, yet the region has achieved notable progress. The city recorded a 13.5% decrease in homelessness, largely due to its focus on families. Family shelter villages have offered safer and more stable environments for parents and children, contributing to a remarkable 72% reduction in unsheltered family homelessness. Safe parking zones help people living in vehicles access bathrooms, counseling, employment services, and pathways to housing. Nonetheless, the city still faces rising rents, an aging homeless population, and increasing drug-related emergencies. San Diego demonstrates that targeted, compassionate policies can create substantial change, though much work remains ahead. Sacramento, the capital of the working homeless. Sacramento, unlike the larger coastal cities, is defined by a different and equally painful reality: the rise of the working homeless. Thousands of individuals earning between $17 and $22 per hour still cannot afford rent, as housing costs have increased nearly 40% in 5 years. 1 in 4 homeless individuals in the region holds a job, creating a paradox where full-time employment no longer guarantees stability. Vehicle residency has grown by 11%, with people sleeping in cars they park in supermarket lots or industrial zones. The city has responded with long-term supportive housing, motel conversions, and rapid rehousing programs, aiming to prevent workers from sliding deeper into crisis. Sacramento's story, often highlighted in a documentary about the homeless, serves as a warning that homelessness is no longer tied solely to unemployment. It is tied to the cost of existing in modern California. Fresno, when the affordable dream collapses. Fresno once represented the idea that California could still be affordable, but that dream collapsed in 2025. Homelessness rose by 14% as rents increased by 42%, while wages for farm workers and low-income labor barely moved. Entire families now live in weekly motels, paying more than they would for an apartment they cannot qualify for. Workers sleep near the very fields they harvest. Tents appear between orchards and along irrigation canals. Elderly residents, single mothers, and full-time laborers have been pulled into homelessness by a system that no longer protects the vulnerable. The Fresno region demonstrates that the crisis is not limited to big cities. It is present everywhere, affecting communities that once felt insulated from such hardship. Fentanyl, a storm sweeping across the state. Fentanyl has swept across California with a force that feels less like a wave and more like a storm. Sudden, relentless, and tragically indiscriminate. No region has been spared, from the dense urban corridors of San Francisco to the wide highways of Los Angeles and the rural outskirts of Fresno. The drug has embedded itself into nearly every community. Emergency rooms now report that fentanyl is involved in a majority of overdose cases. Overwhelming medical staff who have grown accustomed to seeing patients arrive unconscious, barely breathing, or moments away from slipping beyond rescue. What makes this substance particularly devastating is the speed at which it takes hold. A person can go from alert to unresponsive in seconds, leaving little time for intervention. On city streets, the crisis is visible in ways that are both heartbreaking and deeply human. Outreach workers describe scenes that repeat day after day. Individuals collapsing mid-step, friends shaking someone desperately to keep them awake, or small groups gathering around fragile foil sheets in search of relief from physical and emotional pain. People who were once stable, people with jobs, families, routines, can be pulled into fentanyl's grip with frightening speed. And for those already struggling with homelessness, the drug often becomes a way to cope with cold nights, trauma, untreated mental health conditions, or the profound loneliness of living without stability. Yet, even in the middle of this storm, California has begun to build lifelines. 24-hour stabilization centers have emerged as some of the most promising responses to the crisis. Unlike previous systems that discharge patients after only a few hours, these centers keep individuals long enough for their minds to clear and their bodies to stabilize. Medical teams remain available around the clock, offering medication, monitoring, breathing, ensuring hydration, and creating a calming environment where people can regain a sense of presence and control. For many, this is the first moment of safety they have experienced in months or even years. These centers are not only medical facilities, they are bridges. Counselors use these critical windows of lucidity to connect individuals with housing programs, detox services, mental health support, or long-term treatment. Small steps begin here: scheduling follow-up appointments, applying for benefits, replacing lost identification, or reconnecting with family. It is often in these fragile hours that hope becomes possible again. California is slowly accepting a truth that every documentary about the homeless has echoed. Housing alone cannot treat addiction, and treatment alone cannot succeed without housing. When a person finishes rehab only to return to a sidewalk, relapse becomes almost inevitable. And when someone is placed in housing but continues to struggle with untreated addiction, stability becomes fragile and short-lived. The two systems, shelter and treatment, must work together, woven into a single path that allows people to rebuild their lives with dignity and real support. The fentanyl crisis remains one of the darkest challenges the state has ever faced. But in the determination of healthcare workers, the compassion of outreach teams, the voices of survivors, and the creation of stabilization centers, there are signs of a growing understanding, one that recognizes the humanity behind every struggle and the possibility of recovery even in the midst of devastation.